Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of VC Live with Mrinalini and me, Sneha. This is going to be a very special edition, as you might have realized already that this is a recording. Um, today's session will feature a interview with Canna Patel and Mrinalini, which actually took place at an event that was hosted earlier this month called the Conscious Collective. For those of you who attended the event or who aren't aware of the event, Conscious Collective was a special 2-day showcase of installations, of workshops, and of conversations. The installations centered around the concept of conscious living, building, and design. The workshops were also focused on, tactile techniques, processes from very interesting businesses and brands. It also showcased a few interesting movies also around the ideas of building a conscious environment, ideas of sustainability, ideas of preservation and conservation, and of course, conversations curated by Mrinalini and Sneha, yours truly. We featured an array of speakers from different aspects of design, business, and architecture. We had a total of around 32 speakers featured across 11 sessions in 2 days. So it was a very interesting challenge for both of us, which we really enjoyed. And if you were part of the audience those 2 days, we would love to hear from you on what you thought of the session, especially. Coming to what today's session is about, it's a very interesting conversation between Mrinalini and Canna Patel on a very relevant aspect of design and how we see design. Mrinalini, do you want to tell everyone what this conversation was about?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Sneha. So day two began actually with a fireside chat with Canna Patel, and we titled our chat "Building the Future of Designers." It was a really interesting conversation about Canna's journey and her interest in pedagogy as well as practice, and how pedagogy actually influences or will influence the future of design and designers in the country. But before we play this recording for you, we are going to give you a short introduction to Canna. She's been doing some really interesting work, and her portfolio ranges from residential to institutional projects. She has been the interior consultant for the Central Vista project as well. So a quick note about her. Canna actually completed her diploma in architecture from CEPT in Ahmedabad and then pursued a master's in architecture at UC Berkeley. She founded the HCP Interior Design Private Limited when she returned to India to run a multidisciplinary design practice. This was driven by high standards imbibed in the West, but also the beautiful, orderly chaos of different Indian cultures here, she says. She established a unique style that seamlessly blends interiors with architectural forms and spaces, and has since worked on more than 300 interior projects. So through our conversation, we talk a little bit about her work, we talk about her influences, her teaching practice. She's been the visiting faculty at CEPT as well as the National Institute of Design for many years. And she also recently authored the book Meaning is More, Design for India, in which she elaborates on interior design concepts, demonstrating how they are manifested to create timeless and meaningful spaces. So we do hope that you see merit in this conversation, you enjoy it. It was really fun and interesting and insightful. And we do hope that even though this is a recording that you're watching, you walk away with as many insights as we did in person and how inspired we were by Canna and her work. Also, a quick note in case you were not, in case you did not attend the Conscious Collective, there will be recordings of all the other conversations that we had during those 2 days, which should be available shortly on the Godrej Design Lab pages. Check out their social media pages and their website, and there will be information to follow. So enjoy the recording and enjoy the chat with Canna. I'm going to give you a short introduction for Canna.
Um, she's, of course, an architect, an interior designer. She completed her diploma in architecture from CEPT Ahmedabad and then pursued a master's in architecture at UC Berkeley. She founded HCP Interior Design Private Limited. Have a seat, Canna. And she returned to India to run a multidisciplinary design practice driven by the high standards imbibed in the West and the beautiful orderly chaos of different Indian cultures here. I thought that was really interesting, right? Like you kind of bring the East and the West together. She established a unique style that seamlessly blends interiors with architectural forms and spaces. Having worked on more than 300 interior projects, her primary focus has been on private residences, corporate offices, hospitality projects, and institutional buildings. In the past decade, she has also contributed towards small and large-scale government projects, including the renovation of the Raj Bhavan in Gandhinagar, the Swarnim Sankul, which is Central Secretariat at Gandhinagar, and the BJP Karyalaya in Delhi. She is currently serving as the interior sub-consultant for the Central Vista project in New Delhi, which includes the recently inaugurated new Parliament building, among other stately residences and the Common Central Secretariat. That's a big portfolio and a very wide portfolio of work. Canna, a very, very warm welcome on behalf of Sneha, me, VC Live, Godrej, and the entire audience here. We're very excited to have you. It's interesting. So our first talk is actually titled Building the Future of Designers. And we thought that Canna would be the most appropriate person to talk about this because now you know of her illustrious career in the last so many decades. But Canna is also a very intrinsic part of the academia. And she's been teaching for many years. She's taught at CEPT and in other universities as well. And we've spoken about this before, and you've said that teaching for you has been a very intrinsic part of your profession and your own journey, right? And so I want to start by asking you why. Why is it important for you to be a practitioner and be involved in academia at the same time? How does one inform the other? Please.
So, as a designer, and when you go through the college years, you are interested in visuals. You're interested in the design itself, the aesthetics, the functionality of it. And that's what you're taught at a college. That's what you practice. Because when you have a client, they don't come to learn design from you. They don't come to, they want something
going to give you a short introduction for Canna. She's, of course, an architect, an interior designer. She completed her diploma in architecture from CEPT Ahmedabad and then pursued a master's in architecture at UC Berkeley. She founded HCP Interior Design Private Limited. Have a seat, Canna. And she returned to India to run a multidisciplinary design practice driven by the high standards imbibed in the West and the beautiful orderly chaos of different Indian cultures here. I thought that was really interesting, right? That you kind of bring the East and the West together. She established a unique style that seamlessly blends interiors with architectural forms and spaces. Having worked on more than 300 interior projects, her primary focus has been on private residences, corporate offices, hospitality projects, and institutional buildings. In the past decade, she has also contributed towards small and large-scale government projects, including the renovation of the Raj Bhavan in Gandhinagar, the Swarnim Sankul, which is Central Secretariat at Gandhinagar, and the BJP Karyalaya in Delhi. She is currently serving as the interior sub-consultant for the Central Vista project in New Delhi, which includes the recently inaugurated new Parliament building, among other stately residences and the Common Central Secretariat. That's a big portfolio and a very wide portfolio of work. Canna, a very, very warm welcome on behalf of Sneha, me, VC Live, Godrej, and the entire audience here. We're very excited to have you. It's interesting. So our first talk is actually titled Building the Future of Designers. And we thought that Canna would be the most appropriate person to talk about this because now you know of her illustrious career in the last so many decades. But Canna is also a very intrinsic part of the academia. And she's been teaching for many years. She's taught at CEPT and in other universities as well. And we've spoken about this before, and you've said that teaching for you has been a very intrinsic part of your profession and your own journey, right? And so I want to start by asking you why. Why is it important for you to be a practitioner and be involved in academia at the same time? How does one inform the other? Please.
So, as a designer, and when you go through the college years, you are interested in visuals. You're interested in the design itself, the aesthetics, the functionality of it. And that's what you're taught at a college. That's what you practice. Because when you have a client, they don't come to learn design from you. They don't come to, they want something
Secretariat. That's a big portfolio and a very wide portfolio of work. Canna, a very, very warm welcome on behalf of Sneha, me, VC Live, Godrej, and the entire audience here. We're very excited to have you. It's interesting. So our first talk is actually titled Building the Future of Designers. And we thought that Canna would be the most appropriate person to talk about this because now you know of her illustrious career in the last so many decades. But Canna is also a very intrinsic part of the academia. And she's been teaching for many years. She's taught at CEPT and in other universities as well. And we've spoken about this before, and you've said that teaching for you has been a very intrinsic part of your profession and your own journey, right? And so I want to start by asking you why. Why is it important for you to be a practitioner and be involved in academia at the same time? How does one inform the other? College, right? It's not only about classroom learning, but it's about experience. It's about, most universities today have one term where you go out and you train, you get a training term or an experience term. How important is that for people to become good, smart, responsible designers?
Well,
It's a loaded question.
It's a loaded one. So, I mean, I was just this morning, I met Nairika and her 1.5-year-old son was around.
Yeah.
And it took me years back. I have one son as well, and that was many years ago. He's 26 now. It just made me realize that pedagogy begins earlier. It begins, for a woman, it begins, and for a man as well.
Yeah.
It begins when you start parenting, when you start nurturing. Because you definitely ask yourself that, are you going to do everything that you learn? And how are you going to change it? What aspects will you change? And we know from a young person's mind that they will always make us question. Just a few minutes ago, these young two lads who are sitting right in the front, they were told, can you go at the back? And they just slid their chair at the back. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, it's just perfect. And it makes you question.
Yeah.
It makes you question, what does it mean going back? The whole notion has changed. So if that's the case, when we talk about these structured pedagogies in design school, I think they need to evolve. We need to unlearn things, we need to adapt to new ways, we need to evolve with time and create new meanings for the time that it is being taught in.
Absolutely.
So,
context is key, right?
yes, absolutely.
And context is beyond just your physical realm.
Yes.
It's the time period
Yes.
that you're in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can't plan it.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
will all depend on, why is it conscious collective? We've done many wrongs.
Yes.
And I guess all over the world, not just us as India. And the time has come to pause. The pause that I talked about in the previous question, to question what should be done.
We've done a lot of wrongs, but we also have the opportunity to right them. And I think situations like these are those opportunities, right? Whether you're talking about it, whether you're taking action, like you rightly said, you take a moment to reflect on what has happened, what you can do, how you can proceed further, and you can change your future, right? You can always consider alternate futures and change that. I actually wanted to get back to you, and I wanted to question, you said pedagogy starts when you start parenting. What about people who don't want to parent, right? They still have experiences around
Yes,
them. And you're parenting something or the other. It's not
Yeah.
only your own children.
So it's
a
not your own
learning,
learning.
yeah.
Say in my case, it was my studio. 30 years I've been practicing. And to start with, as a woman practitioner, I had only women in my studio, not by choice. Young men didn't want to work for a young woman.
Really? Well, that's actually not surprising, is it?
And it's changed now. Now it's a good balance. I have men and women both in my studio. So that teaching also is within your studio. I did undergraduate research work with students from School of Interior Design at CEPT. That's something I chose because earlier I didn't have time to actually go and teach at CEPT. Because it was a young practice and it required my attention more often.
Right.
So it was through those students, and when you read their acknowledgement page in their thesis, and when they say write something, you realize, oh, is that what I did? Because they would write it that she was not only a guide to this thesis, but she was a guide to many other thoughts in our personal life.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that, oh, is that what I did?
But that's impact, right?
Yes.
And it's really interesting that you bring that up because that rolls well into my next question. I wanted to ask you, you're talking about people who you have taught and who you have guided and who've published their theses, right? But you very recently published a book yourself. And if you could tell us a little bit more about that, and what I specifically want to know is that why did you feel that this was the right time for you to put your works together, to put your thoughts together? It's not just a monograph of your projects. It's a very thoughtfully put together journey of, your career, your philosophies, your ideologies. So if you could tell us a little bit more about the book and also why this was the right time for you to do it.
So previously we talked about that I teach at CEPT, right? And I taught only theory subjects. So I would be outside their design studios teaching theory like lighting and interiors, surface treatment, or professional practice, or textiles and interiors, because these are subjects that are not often touched upon by practitioners in a design school.
Yeah.
And I felt that I had to teach them with a feeling that they eat it almost like a gulab jamun. It's like part of them with that smile on their face. And then I would be invited to juries. What we have is design juries in this. I mean, you're familiar with it. Now, in a design jury, the first question, and there'll be a panel of 7, 8 people, and poor one student is standing in front of you. And these 7 people question, okay, can you explain us what's your concept? And this is interior design students. And they used to fumble. They had some sketch, some one page to say a little bit about it. These are early years, okay?
Right.
Things have changed quite a bit now. And they don't know what a concept means. They were not given, when you study management, you do case studies. So through case studies, you learn about other companies.
Right.
But there is, as you know, and you also an architect, we are not given enough case studies to show that these are the different ways of doing concepts. This had triggered in me that I have to, whichever level I practice, I should put that whole idea of concepts, the expressions, the techniques, which bring out the essence of a space in some of our projects, and explain it more at length, not through compilation of projects, but just pick few of my projects of different scales, and then talk about them.
Right.
In some sense, exemplify it.
Right.
That can there be one philosophy, which is your identity? Can there be your design principles that guide you? And how it can penetrate through each project to provide an environment that's meaningful. And that's why it's called Meaning is More.
Yes.
Because it stresses that it's not all about aesthetics and functionality, but it is about your innovative way of how it provokes your thoughts, how it lends a meaning. And hence those projects are not necessarily the kind of projects when you can do concepts, as you know.
Yeah.
But even a government, Swarnim Sankul, how can you bring a meaningful thought to it?
Yeah.
And this meaningful thought in many different ways is from there the idea of conscious thought, conscious thinking. And so it's quite connected, because this is more a story that you tell on your own for your space, whereas conscious thoughts is more at a larger, broader sense. And hopefully the next book might be something to do with conscious collective.
Oh, that would be so wonderful. It's a fabulous book. It's actually available on Amazon, so please do have a look at it. And it's really interesting that, through this conversation, we've already identified, you're talking to younger adults who are, breaking into the industry, students who want to become the designers of tomorrow, right? They're shaping what is going to come tomorrow. We've been talking about this a lot in the last couple of days, that what is the future and where is that headed? But it's interesting to see that, you can along with your practice, you can find different means of developing yourself and becoming more conscious of what you're doing. Teaching is definitely one way of doing that. I think writing is another way of doing that, right? And that's one of the reasons why I asked, is because writing a book allows you to, like you said, pause and reflect and actually think about what it is that you're doing, what it is that you want to do. I do want to ask you that, having written this book, do you find yourself in a place where your perspective has shifted or changed, or the way you approach your work, has that changed or altered since you've taken that moment to actually reflect on the work that you've done so far?
So first of all, just to share, the book, we've been working on it for the last 4.5 years, parallel with the Central Vista workload. But COVID helped because commute time was saved and one got time to think about it, work on it. It was produced in-house through our design studio. It was written collectively through the design studio.
Yes.
And CEPT has been the publisher on it. So the book has taught us, first of all, what it takes to do a book that you can take a joy in. It forced us to think, and who are we writing for? And we were very clear that we are not writing for just us designers.
Right.
It is for lay people, it is for young students, young practitioners, and then the so-called esteemed and well-known designers. So the language is simple. Something I learned, that the more complex you write, more complicated way you present something, people won't get it. And you want people beyond the design community to be able to pick up the book and feel comfortable to read it.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing I learned, that
To have meaning for them. That's
Yes.
why, right? Meaning is more.
absolutely,
Yeah.
meaning is more. And to connect, because there are so many people who aspire for getting interiors done. Will they pick up the book and flip through it and say that can they make their wish list based on that? It's going to be different for each one. But so that was one of the purpose, to communication to a larger audience. That's what I learned, and that's very important.
Yeah.
I think otherwise the conversation just goes on within us designers and our
That's true.
students or the young people, and that is not going to have an impact on the society.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to take a cue on that and bring in the audience over here, because it's not about a conversation just between us. We would like to take questions from the audience if anyone would have any. Yeah. Canna, you've been so articulate and you've explained yourself so well. And it's really interesting to have people like you who are bridging this divide between practice and academia, because I think that's really critical to shape and give practical sort of knowledge to students and to the designers of tomorrow, right? It's not like you leave college and you become a practitioner and then you forget college, but there has to be this constant dialogue between research, writing, pedagogy, practice, application. And that's the only way to really sort of develop in a critical manner the future. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're doing Conscious Collective, is to be able to, I keep coming back to what you said, right? To take a pause and to reflect and to allow ourselves to think about where we are and where we can move further. And I think this has been a wonderful start and the most appropriate start to day 2. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome, and thanks a lot, Mrinalini, for giving us this opportunity to talk to a larger audience and
Yes.
be able to share what the thoughts are. on these things.
Absolutely.
And you made it so comfortable that one could talk from within one's heart rather than presenting as a situation.
Thank you.
demands.
Sorry to not mention this earlier, but these are all Canna's works that have been looped at the background. The idea was to show you what she's been up to and what she's been doing, but to have a candid and open conversation about her and her work. A small token of appreciation for you being here and joining us this morning.
That was very inspiring, Canna. Thank you so much.
Yeah. A big round of applause to Canna Patel, please.
Just a quick photo.
So we hope you enjoyed this conversation with Canna Patel, and you thought it was insightful. We do look forward to your comments, and in case you have any questions, we apologize that we are unable to pick them up live today. But please do share your comments and questions and your thoughts with us, and we will forward them to Canna, and we will try to get a response from her. She is more than willing. She is so passionate about what she does and so open and approachable that it's been really interesting to kind of work with her and talk to her. And she is very happy to address your concerns. So do share your comments and questions. This also marks the end of this year for us at VC Live. And we look forward to another year of very interesting conversations coming up in 2024. Sneha, you want to close the year for us?
Yeah, I think we can't wait to show you what we have planned for the new year and for the new season. But we also wanted to extend our thanks to all of you who've been joining in and been with us almost every session. Mrinalini and I are really passionate about this, about the people that we invite and bring to these seasons. We've done 2 wonderful seasons so far and over 22+ episodes, which are all on Godrej Locks' Facebook page. So if you want to check back on some of the conversations that you might missed, please go to Godrej Locks' Facebook page. So we want to thank you, all of you, for following us in this journey of creating these wonderful and curating these wonderful masterclasses. We also wanted to thank all of our speakers who've been so gracious in sharing their time, spending their time with us. We will be shortly sharing a feedback form, which we would genuinely like to hear from you as to how we can make this better. Because at the end of the day, we are doing this for a community that you represent, that you are a part of, and we would love to do more. And yeah, we'd once we hear back from you, we would like to infuse some of those comments into what we do for season 3. So please watch the
Absolutely.
space.
It'll be good to hear from you all in terms of what you want us to talk about. What are some of the
Yeah.
areas of your interest that you think could become an interesting series coming up? People that you would
Yeah.
like to hear from, speakers that you think it would be interesting for you to hear from or you would like to engage with. Of course, we will try our best to incorporate your feedback. Also, tell us how we're doing. We're always
Yeah.
looking forward for feedback and would like to do bigger and better. But I think wishing everybody a fabulous start to the new year and a good, relaxing end to this one.
Absolutely. Happy 2024 and looking forward to a happy 2024.
Yes.
See you soon,
Okay.
everyone. Thank you.
Have a good
Bye.
night. Bye-bye.